The church was silent, bathed in the soft morning light filtering through the stained glass windows. The guests sat quietly, their eyes fixed on the altar where Emma stood, radiant in her wedding dress. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the bouquet, and her eyes, though shining with tears, searched the room with a kind of desperate hope. The priest cleared his throat gently, opening the well-worn Bible. He was about to begin the vows, his voice calm and steady, when the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church creaked open. All heads turned. There, in the doorway, stood a man no one expected, Liam. He held a thick folder under his arm, his face set with a determination that silenced the murmurs. His eyes locked onto Emma's, and in that moment, the years of distant silence and regret seemed to vanish into the air between them. Emma's heart pounded wildly, the sound drowning out everything else. She wanted to run to him, to shout his name, but the solemnity of the moment and the eyes of dozens of strangers held her frozen in place. Her mind raced back to everything that led to this day, what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. For 4 years, Liam had been her world. They met in this very church on a chilly autumn Sunday. He was the one who held her hand as she nervously stepped into faith, and the one who whispered promises of forever during long walks home beneath the fading light of dusk. But life, as it often does, had other plans. The man she was about to marry today, David, was everything Liam was not at that moment: stable, reliable, able to provide the life Liam felt he had lost the right to offer. Months ago, Emma made the painful decision to let go, to close the door on the man who had once held her heart. And Liam? He thought he had lost her for good. He never meant to walk away. When the job disappeared, when the bills piled high and the pressure crushed him, he shut down. He told himself it was for her, that she deserved better than a man drowning in his own failures. But every quiet night alone, every lonely meal, every hollow morning reminded him of the mistake he had made. He spent months trying to rebuild himself, hoping for a second chance. Then one day, a friend sent him a photo, an invitation to Emma's wedding. His chest tightened as he read the date, the place, the little chapel where their story began. Liam knew he had no right to interfere, but the thought of Emma saying her vows to someone else in their church without him was unbearable. So, he did the only thing he could think of. He bought the church. He poured his last savings into purchasing the chapel, not to stop the wedding, but to remind Emma of their shared past. It was a gamble, a desperate attempt to rewrite the story. Now, standing at the back of the church, watching the woman he loved on the verge of a new life, Liam felt the weight of every choice he'd made. The priest cleared his throat again, but no one heard him. Emma's breath caught as Liam stepped into the aisle, his footsteps steady despite the pounding of his heart. The guests exchanged confused glances, whispers rising like a quiet tide. She looked at David, who smiled with confidence, unaware of the storm brewing in the room. Emma's eyes never left Liam's. She remembered the nights they spent dreaming here, in this very place, dreams of a life they might have had. Her hands gripped the bouquet so tightly the petals began to crush. The words she had rehearsed, the vows she was about to say, now felt hollow. Liam reached her side and gently placed the folder on the pew. "This church belongs to me now," he said quietly, his voice steady but full of emotion. A stunned silence followed. Emma's heart shattered and mended all at once. For the first time in months, she heard the man she had never stopped loving speak with the courage she thought he'd lost. The priest lowered his Bible, the ceremony forgotten. Emma took a shaky breath, caught between the life she had promised and the love she never stopped believing in. Liam hadn't planned to let Emma go. Not like that. But when the silence grew between them, thick and heavy, he thought maybe she deserved a better life than the one he could give. It wasn't because he stopped loving her. It was because he loved her too much to hold her back. He remembered the early days, how their laughter filled every corner of this little town, how they dreamed aloud on park benches and whispered secrets beneath the stars. Emma had been the light in his dark moments. But then the dark grew heavier. Losing his job wasn't just about money. It was about pride, about feeling like less of a man. Every rejection, every closed door chipped away at his confidence. He thought if he couldn't be the man she deserved, then maybe stepping away was the kindest thing he could do. Emma never understood why he drifted away. Calls went unanswered. Messages left unread. When she finally knocked on his door, he wasn't there. The loneliness in her voice when she told him she was done cut deeper than any argument they'd ever had. She left the town that day, suitcase in hand and heartbroken but hopeful. Hopeful that maybe, somewhere else, she'd find peace. Liam stayed behind, drowning in what-ifs and regrets. Nights were the hardest. He'd sit by the window, staring out at the stars, wishing for a second chance he thought would never come. Months passed. Life went on. Emma tried to build a new future with David, a man who offered her stability, a safe harbor from the storms she had weathered. He was kind and patient, and his love was steady, if not passionate. Emma tried to believe that was enough. But every night, when the world was quiet, her mind wandered back to Liam, to the laughter they shared, the promises whispered in the dark, the dreams they once painted together. She wondered if Liam thought about her too, if he regretted letting go. Then came the invitation, a simple piece of paper elegantly printed, an announcement that her life was moving forward. The date, the place, the names. Liam saw it before anyone else. A mutual friend had sent it to him, not knowing the storm it would bring. He stared at the invite, the words blurring as tears pricked his eyes. Emma was getting married to someone else, in the chapel where their love had first blossomed. It was a cruel twist of fate. For the first time in months, Liam felt something stir inside him, a fierce determination. He couldn't stand by and watch her walk away forever, not without a fight. But how do you fight for someone who's already moved on? He thought about crashing the wedding, about shouting his love from the church steps. But Liam was no longer the impulsive man he once was. He needed a plan that would reach her heart without tearing her world apart. Then he learned the chapel was for sale, a forgotten piece of their past, quietly waiting for someone to claim it. Without hesitation, Liam took a leap. He sold his car, borrowed from friends, and signed the papers. The chapel was his. He didn't buy it to stop the wedding. Not really. He bought it to hold onto the memory of them, to show Emma that their story wasn't over. Now, standing at the back of the church, holding the proof of ownership, Liam knew the hardest part was yet to come. He had to face Emma, look into her eyes, tell her everything he never had the courage to say before. The air was thick with tension as the ceremony continued, but neither Liam nor Emma could focus. The past and present collided in a way neither expected. Emma's hands shook as she clutched her bouquet. Her heart ached with the weight of choices made and those yet to be faced. David noticed the change but didn't understand it. He smiled politely, waiting for the moment he believed was his to claim. But Emma wasn't ready. Not yet. Liam took a slow, steady step forward, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "This church belongs to me now," he said. The words hung in the air like a challenge, a plea, and a promise all at once. Emma's eyes filled with tears, memories flooding back, of love lost, mistakes made, and a hope that maybe, just maybe, love could find its way again. Emma stood at the altar, her fingers trembling slightly as she gripped the bouquet. The soft murmur of the guests faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of her own heart. She looked around the chapel, the place where so many of her happiest memories with Liam had been made. The same chapel where their love had blossomed, now filled with strangers waiting for her to say the words that would change everything. Yet, despite the crowd, she felt utterly alone. David stood beside her, his hand warm and steady on her arm. He was the man who promised her safety and stability, a future without the chaos that once consumed her life. He was kind, patient, and good. But kindness wasn't enough to fill the hollow inside her that Liam's absence left. Even now, as the ceremony pressed on, she found her thoughts drifting to the man who had been her first love, her first heartbreak. She remembered the early days when Liam had been her whole world. Their laughter echoing through the quiet streets, the stolen glances across crowded rooms, the endless conversations that lasted long into the night. They had planned a future together, or at least she thought they had. But life had other plans. When Liam lost his job, everything changed. The man she once knew retreated into himself, withdrawing from her slowly but surely. No angry words, no heated fights, just a cold silence that crept between them like winter frost. She had begged him to talk, to share the burden, but he only closed the door tighter. She couldn't watch him disappear piece by piece. The night she left was the hardest. She packed her bags quietly, tears streaming down her face, hoping that distance would heal what time couldn't. She told herself she was strong enough to move on, to find a life where love didn't hurt so much. David entered that life. He was steady, reliable, everything Liam was not during those dark days. When he proposed, she said yes, desperate for something she thought she deserved, peace. But peace had been an illusion. Now, as the priest prepared to begin the vows, Emma's mind replayed the moment she received Liam's wedding invitation. It had arrived unexpectedly, a simple card with her name on it, the date and location, her chapel. Her hands had trembled as she held it, and 1,000 questions flooded her thoughts. Had Liam moved on? Was this his way of saying goodbye? She had tried to believe that she was ready to say yes to David. But in the quiet moments, she still longed for the man who had quietly owned this chapel, who had fought silently to hold onto their past. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors at the back of the church opened again. All eyes turned, hearts skipping a beat. Liam stepped inside, the folder of papers under his arm catching the morning light. His eyes searched the room until they found hers. Emma's breath caught. The world seemed to tilt, and all the words she had rehearsed vanished. Liam's voice was calm but full of urgency as he spoke. "I own this church now." Whispers rippled through the crowd. David's confident smile faltered. The priest paused, caught between duty and disbelief. Emma stared at Liam, tears welling up in her eyes. The man who had once promised forever was here, standing in the place where they had dreamed together, fighting for a chance she never thought she'd get back. She realized then that her heart had never stopped beating for him. But this moment was more than just a surprise. It was a choice, a crossroads where the past and present collided. Could she turn away from the life she had promised? Could she believe in the love she thought was lost? The answer was uncertain, the future unwritten. But in that sacred chapel, surrounded by friends, family, and memories, Emma understood one thing clearly. Love was never as simple as a vow. And sometimes the hardest battles were fought quietly, in moments just like this. Liam sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the faded wedding invitation. The paper was crinkled, edges worn from being folded and unfolded too many times. It was the kind of thing he never thought he'd see, Emma's name, his old love, with another man's name beside it. The date, the church, the promise of a new beginning, it all hit him like a cold wave. He hadn't spoken to her in months. No calls, No texts, no meetings. It was his choice to walk away, or so he told himself. But now, reading the invitation, the weight of what he'd lost settled heavy in his chest. The man who had been certain of his love now felt like a stranger to himself. For hours, Liam sat silently, the kitchen light casting shadows on his face. Memories flooded back, the way Emma's laughter filled their tiny apartment, how her hand fit perfectly in his, the dreams they once shared, and the silence that grew between them, like a wall neither dared to climb. He had thought time would heal the wounds, but instead it only made the absence louder. Every day, without her, was a reminder of the mistake he'd made. The regret gnawed at him, but pride held him back from reaching out. What could he say after so long? How could he ask for forgiveness when she was about to marry someone else? Then a friend called. Casual, almost hesitant. "Did you see Emma's wedding invite?" "The one for the chapel." Liam swallowed hard. The chapel. Their chapel. The place where their love had first taken root. It was meant to be a place of hope, not heartbreak. He knew then what he had to do, not because he wanted to stop the wedding, but because he couldn't let go without trying to make things right. The chapel was for sale. No one wanted it anymore, too small, too old. But to Liam, it was everything. He scraped together what little money he had left, sold his car, borrowed from friends. The days blurred into nights as he fought to gather the funds. Finally, the papers were signed. The chapel belonged to him. When he held the deed in his hands, a mixture of triumph and fear settled over him. What would Emma think? Would she see it as a gesture of love or desperation? Was it too late to fix what had broken? The day of the wedding arrived. Liam stood quietly at the back of the chapel, heart pounding louder than the whispering crowd. He watched as Emma walked down the aisle, radiant and hesitant all at once. David stood confidently at the altar, unaware of the storm about to unfold. The priest began the ceremony, his voice steady but interrupted by the sudden creak of the church doors. Heads turned. Liam stepped forward, clutching the folder of legal papers. His voice was calm, steady, but full of emotion. "This church belongs to me now." A stunned silence fell. Emma's eyes widened, searching Liam's face. The priest paused mid-sentence, caught between sacred duty and an unexpected truth. David's smile faltered, confusion and frustration flickering across his features. Liam's gaze held Emma's, filled with regret and hope. "I'm not here to stop you," he said softly, "but I can't let you marry without knowing everything." The air was thick with tension. Emma's breath hitched as memories of love and loss rushed in. The future she had planned suddenly seemed uncertain. The chapel, once just a building, had become a crossroads, a place where past and present collided, and where hearts would have to decide which path to follow. In that moment, Liam realized this was more than a fight for a church or a wedding day. It was a fight for a love neither of them could forget. Emma stood frozen at the altar, the bouquet slipping slightly from her trembling hands. The whole room seemed to hold its breath as Liam's words echoed through the sacred space. "This church belongs to me now." Those words, simple yet powerful, cut through the quiet like a thunderclap. Her mind raced, memories flooding back in vivid flashes, the laughter they shared, the promises made under this very roof, the dreams that once seemed so certain. How did it all come to this? How did the love she once thought unbreakable twist into something so complicated? David's eyes searched hers, confusion mingling with concern. He had waited patiently, believing this was a day to start fresh. But now, everything was unraveling. Emma felt a storm raging inside her. Part of her wanted to run, to escape the weight of the moment and the emotions it stirred. But another part, the part that still beat for Liam, demanded she face the truth. She looked at Liam, his face lined with regret, but also determination. He wasn't just fighting for the chapel. He was fighting for her, for a chance to rewrite their story. Taking a deep breath, Emma's voice broke the silence. "Liam, why now? Why after all this time?" Liam stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Because I couldn't let you go without telling you how much you meant to me, how much I still do." The guests murmured softly, caught between sympathy and surprise. Emma's heart pounded, so loud she thought it might burst. She had spent so long convincing herself that Liam was a chapter closed, that David was the future she needed. But standing here, seeing Liam's pain and honesty, everything felt uncertain. The priest, sensing the gravity of the moment, gently spoke. "Emma, this is your day. But only you can decide how this story ends." Tears blurred Emma's vision as she looked between the two men, the past and the present, love and stability, passion and peace. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know what to do." Liam took her hand, his touch familiar and warm. "We can figure it out. Together." David stepped back, his face a mix of disappointment and understanding. "I want you to be happy, Emma, even if that means letting you go." The chapel, once a quiet witness to their love, now held the weight of their choices. The guests watched in respectful silence, sensing this was more than just a wedding day. It was a turning point. Emma's mind spun with questions. Could love really be this complicated? Could she find a way to honor the past without sacrificing her future? As the sun filtered through the stained glass, casting colorful patterns on the floor, Emma realized that some vows were harder than words. They required courage, honesty, and the willingness to face the unknown. She squeezed Liam's hand gently, a silent promise that this was not the end. Not yet. In that moment, Emma understood that love was never just about the perfect day or the right words. It was about the messy, beautiful, painful journey that came after. And sometimes, the greatest vow was the one you made to yourself, to follow your heart, no matter where it led. Emma's fingers tightened around Liam's hand, feeling the familiar warmth and comfort she had missed for so long. The chapel was filled with a hush, a fragile silence that seemed to stretch between the past and the uncertain future. Guests shifted in their seats, unsure what to expect next. This wasn't the perfect wedding anyone had imagined. She turned to David, who now stood a few steps behind, his eyes soft with sadness but filled with respect. Emma's heart ached for him. He had offered her a stable life, a fresh start, but today had shown her that stability alone wasn't enough. "I'm sorry, David," she said quietly. "I thought I was ready to move on. But my heart, it's not that simple." David nodded, swallowing his disappointment. "I want you to be happy, Emma, even if it's not with me." Emma looked back at Liam, the man who had fought silently for her, who had taken a risk that few would understand. Her breath caught as memories flooded in, the late-night talks, the promises they made when the world felt endless, the dreams that had once seemed so close. "I don't know where we go from here," she admitted. "But I can't walk down that aisle today, not with all these unanswered questions." Liam squeezed her hand gently, his voice steady. "Then don't. Let's figure it out together. No rush. No pressure." For the first time in months, Emma felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real. It was terrifying to confront the uncertainty, but also freeing. She realized love wasn't about perfect moments or scripted vows. It was messy and unpredictable and required courage. The priest cleared his throat softly, stepping forward. "It's your choice, Emma. This day is yours, and your heart must lead the way." Whispers rose among the guests, but the focus was on Emma's face, a portrait of confusion, courage, and honesty. She took a deep breath, then faced the crowd. "I need time. Time to understand what my heart truly wants." A murmur of support rippled through the room. Liam's eyes glistened with relief, while David gave a small, understanding nod. Emma glanced once more at the chapel's stained glass windows, where light poured in like a promise. She thought about the years she had spent trying to be strong, to move forward, to do what was expected. But now, she realized strength was also in admitting when you didn't have all the answers. Turning to Liam, she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up." He smiled, the weight on his shoulders lightening. "I never stopped loving you, Emma. Not for a day." The chapel seemed to breathe with them, alive with second chances and new beginnings. Outside, the world continued, unaware of the quiet revolution happening within those walls. Emma knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be doubts, tough conversations, and moments of fear. But for the first time in a long time, she was ready to face it. Because love wasn't just about the vows spoken today. It was about every choice made after every moment of honesty, every step toward healing. And in that small sunlit chapel, with two men who cared deeply for her, Emma was ready to find her truth. The days after the chapel showdown were anything but quiet. Emma found herself walking the halls of the small church, the very place where she had planned to say "I do," but now held so many unanswered questions. The walls echoed with memories, and the sunlight through the stained glass seemed to dance like ghosts of the past. Liam was there too, quiet, patient, hopeful. He didn't pressure her or demand answers. Instead, he listened. And slowly, between whispered conversations and long silences, they began to rebuild something fragile but real. Emma's heart was a battlefield. The past and the present waged war inside her, each moment pulling her in different directions. David, who had been her anchor for months, became a distant memory, not because she didn't appreciate him, but because love couldn't be forced or rushed. One evening, sitting in the chapel pews long after the sun had set, Emma finally voiced what she'd been hiding. "I'm scared, Liam. Scared that if we try again, it won't work. Scared that I'll get hurt again." Liam reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "I'm scared too, but some things are worth the risk." Their conversations grew deeper, filled with honesty neither had dared to speak before. Liam shared his fears of failure and worthlessness after losing his job. Emma revealed how she felt abandoned and broken when he walked away. Together, they began to understand the pain beneath their silence. Outside the chapel, the town whispered about the unexpected turn of events. Some sympathized with Liam's fight, others saw it as a dramatic interruption. But for Emma, it was a chance to rewrite their story on her own terms. Days turned to weeks. Slowly, the sharp edges of their past softened. They laughed again, not because the pain was gone, but because they chose to hope. One afternoon, Liam surprised Emma with a picnic by the old park bench where they had first dreamed of their future. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle, and for a moment, the world felt right. Emma smiled, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Do you really think we can fix this?" Liam nodded, his voice steady. "Not fix, Emma. Build something new. Something stronger." But healing wasn't a straight path. Doubts crept in, awkward silences lingered, and the fear of repeating old mistakes loomed over them. Yet, every step forward was a victory. Emma found herself drawn back to the chapel not just as a memory, but as a symbol of what they could become. Liam's purchase wasn't just a legal act, it was a promise. One evening, as they locked up the chapel together, Liam turned to her. "Whatever happens, I'm here. No more running, no more silence." Emma's heart swelled with hope and cautious joy. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't walking it alone. Love, she realized, was less about perfection and more about the courage to keep trying, even when the future was unknown. Months had passed since that day in the chapel, when everything changed. Emma and Liam had chosen a different path, one without rushed vows or broken promises. They were rebuilding, piece by piece, a love that had once faltered, but now stood on a foundation stronger than before. The chapel, once a silent witness to their pain and hope, had become their sanctuary. Together, they poured their time and hearts into restoring it. The peeling paint was sanded smooth, the old wooden pews polished to a warm glow. Every nail hammered felt like a stitch mending wounds they once thought too deep to heal. Emma found herself smiling more these days. The weight of uncertainty had lifted, replaced by cautious optimism. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be perfect, no love ever was. But this felt real, grounded. Liam was different too. The shadows that once clouded his eyes were replaced by a quiet strength. He had found work again, steady and honest. But more importantly, he had found himself. And in doing so, he had found Emma again. One afternoon, as sunlight poured through the stained glass, Liam took Emma's hand. "I want to make a promise," he said softly. "Not the kind that comes with rings or grand ceremonies, but the kind that means I'm here. For you, for us. No more running." Emma's eyes glistened with tears she didn't try to hide. "I want that too," she whispered. "No more hiding from the truth." They stood there, hands clasped, surrounded by the history they were creating. One not written in vows spoken once, but in daily choices to love, forgive, and grow. The town slowly began to see the chapel not just as a building, but as a symbol of second chances, of love reclaimed against the odds. Emma and Liam opened its doors for community events, small weddings, and moments of healing. The chapel's story became intertwined with theirs, a testament to resilience. David, too, had stepped away gracefully. He wished Emma well, understanding that love wasn't about possession but freedom. Emma was grateful for the peace he gave her, a kindness that allowed her to find her way back to Liam. One evening, as they sat on the chapel steps watching the sunset, Liam squeezed Emma's hand. "We can't predict the future," he said, "but I know I want to face it with you." Emma leaned into him, heart full. "Me too." No grand promises, no rushing. Just two people, willing to try again, knowing that love was not about perfection, but about the courage to keep choosing each other every day. The chapel bells chimed softly in the distance, carrying a message of hope. Sometimes, the vows that matter most are the ones made quietly, with an open heart and a willing soul.